let's have a bit of a chat about race in America. I know, light and fun stuff, right? And particularly the incredible hypocrisy of the progressive Democrat left, which is very quick to scream racism when it suits their purposes, while at the same time stoking a peculiar, bizarre, and some would say reverse racism the rest of the time. Now, a few days ago, the Democrats and most of the media lost their minds when Donald Trump's social media team posted a video about alleged fraud in the 2020 election. And somehow that included a few seconds from another parody video that had various Democrat figures portrayed as characters from The Lion King, including Barack and Michelle Obama as a couple of apes. Now, I don't want to relitigate this whole thing. If you weren't living under a rock the last week, you saw the outrage mostly confected. And I say confected because at the same time as the left was whipping up hysteria about the alleged racism of Donald Trump and his whole administration and anyone who ever put on a MAGA hat, well, this video surfaced.
I always tell people the day the Latino, African American, Asian, and other communities realize that they share the same oppressor is the day we start winning. Because we are the majority in this country now. We have the ability to take over this country and to do what is needed for everyone and to make things fair.
We have the ability to take over this country. Now, that wasn't some random professor of third world literature at a third-rate community college. That was Gene Wu, a Democrat member of the Texas state legislature, calling for non-whites to unite against their common oppressor. And I think we know who he means, in the name of fairness, to do what needs to be done. Can you feel the tolerance? Can you just feel the racial healing? Naturally, there was no outrage in the media about what sounds like, frankly, a call to divide America, if not worse, by someone who came to America from communist China as a little boy, only to take his ticket into the land of equality and opportunity and use it to spread the worst sort of identity politics, pitting Americans against one another. Well, I'm sure Beijing is really proud of their favorite son here. But that clip was not the only one that made the rounds this week, but was ignored by all the usual suspects. There was this vision of former New York Representative Charles Barron talking about what in any other circumstance would sound like ethnic cleansing.
I have the distinct honor to be able to come before you and say I actually lost white population in my community. I lost them. They left. They left. I didn't ask them why. They left. So if you see 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 whites in my neighborhood, they're passing through. So.
And oh, how they cheered. And oh, how everyone who condemned and condemns Trump remained silent. But you can only imagine the reaction if the roles were reversed. Could you imagine it? No, I mean, just think about it. Imagine a white politician talking about how he drove blacks out of his district while the crowd laughed. It would be rightly condemned as a Klan meeting. And I mean, I thought the point of the racial harmony the left has preached my whole life was the idea that we would come together to live together in perfect harmony, just like that old Coke commercial. Yet New York Magazine, a reliably liberal publication, just 2 days ago ran this piece by writer Naomi Jackson entitled, "I Miss My Black Brooklyn." And she writes, "I once lived in a black Mecca. But by the summer of 2022, my toddler son and I were often the only black folks on the playground in Bedford-Stuyvesant, a fact that felt both alienating and surreal." How very bizarre. Again, imagine if a white author talked about being replaced by black folks or feeling like a stranger in their own neighborhood because of demographic changes. Well, we know how that plays out. Yet this is what the left in America is pushing and pursuing behind closed doors where they don't think the rest of us are watching. And it's not just African Americans. This mentality has infected this entire side of politics, and a phenomenon that started when Barack Obama was president, and he picked over the country's healing racial scars by pushing the myth that there was an epidemic of white cops shooting unarmed blacks, a suggestion that exploded in the BLM riots of 2020. And now, this is gospel. This is what the left thinks. Here's Democrat Kentucky Representative Sarah Stalker.
I'm going to be honest, I don't feel good about being white every day. I think we're missing an opportunity when kids have a moment to reflect about how the color of their skin does and does not allow them to move through the world. Running to them and trying to stifle that and trying to say you shouldn't feel bad, so we don't want to ever expose you to something that is going to make you have to pause and have maybe some internal feelings. It's a missed opportunity for some really good dialogue.
This is what she wants to teach kids? Now, I talk about this not just because it's important to point out the hypocrisy who jump on Trump for a racist social media clip, but so also at the same time spread the worst of the actual poison on their own side. But I also want to point out why the fight over these things is so vital, because as we have talked about time and time again on this program, there is a real danger of the U.S. coming apart as it approaches its 250th anniversary this July. Remember, just a few weeks ago, we had Minnesota Governor Tim Walz saying he feared a Fort Sumter moment in the United States. Fort Sumter being where the first shots in the Civil War were fired, a fight not over immigration enforcement, but a fight over anti-slavery enforcement, again by the federal government against, again, recalcitrant Democrats. This is why what I'm talking about, this racial separatism by the party that claims to want everyone to get along, feels like a buildup to something, frankly, far, far worse.